Welcome to True Haitian Crime Stories. I'm your host, Shayna Pierre. As previously mentioned, while our focus is primarily on Haitian crime stories, we occasionally spotlight individuals who have had a significant impact on Haitian culture. One such figure deserving of an honorable mention is Arthur Teele, whose influence was particularly notable during a certain period. Arthur Teele, a former Miami City commissioner, was a figure both towering and tragic, whose life and career encapsulated both the heights of political influence and the depths of personal despair. Before we dive into this story, I want to share an interview with you at the end that provides insight into the man himself. The interview features Arthur Teele during his campaign for Miami mayor on October 23, 1996. But for now, let's continue. Known for his robust support of Miami's Haitian community, Teele was instrumental in funding various cultural activities, including the popular Haitian Compas Festival and the Haitian Music Awards. The Haitian Music and Entertainment Awards that was created by Cynthia Blank, prominent figure in the industry at the time, found a new home at Miami Arena for its 6th annual event thanks to Miami City Commissioner Arthur Teele. When the organizers faced challenges securing a venue, Teele successfully convinced the arena to waive its fees, enabling the show to proceed. This act of support allowed the event to feature top Haitian bands, including Tabou Combo, who were honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Overall, Teele secured over $40,000 for the award ceremony.
"We are so excited about bringing this event to the city of Miami,"
said Cynthia Blanc, president of Lorraine Entertainment and president of the awards show. However, beneath the surface of public service, a storm of controversy and allegations was brewing, one that would ultimately lead to his dramatic and public demise. On July 27, 2005, the city of Miami was shaken by the news that Teele, amid swirling accusations of corruption, had ended his life in the lobby of the Miami Herald. This shocking act occurred just before the publication of a Miami New Times expose that detailed his alleged involvement in a range of illicit activities, from bribery and extortion to fraud and money laundering. Teele's death marked a dark day in the city's political history, bringing an abrupt and grim end to a once lauded career. Within minutes of his conversation with former Miami Commissioner Arthur Teele Jr., Miami Herald columnist Jim DeFeed realized his friend, who was deep in the middle of legal problems and a criminal probe, was in great distress. DeFeed instinctively pressed the record button on the tape recorder by his home phone.
When Art called me, it wasn't unusual to hear him want to vent and talk about what was going on in his life and politics in general.
DeFeed says, as he describes in detail what transpired the night Teele fatally shot himself in the Herald lobby and the events leading up to DeFeed being fired hours later.
As we started to talk, I became alarmed because I was hearing something in Art's voice that I hadn't heard before: frustration, but more than frustration, almost defeatism. "It honestly scared me a little," he says. I had never heard Art almost in tears as the way he was on the phone. I just wasn't thinking about whether it was right or wrong, legal or not. I was hearing someone coming unhinged. There was a tape recorder by my phone. I just turned it on. I wasn't doing that because I thought that was going to be a story.
He says he recorded the conversation much the way one would an emergency police call. That decision, however, would lead his employers at the Herald to fire him in the latest controversy to Royal American Journalism this year. In Florida, it is illegal to tape conversations unless both parties agree. But, says DeFeed,
my decision to tape him was instantaneous, to keep a record of a call almost like you do with 911. I didn't even think about telling him. It was just a matter of wanting to listen to what he had to say and not interrupt him to tell him about the tape. It was not whether it was right or wrong or what are the rules. I just thought instinctively it was something to be preserved.
Although Teele faced more than 24 counts of public corruption, his main concern was how his sex life was being played out in various stories that appeared on the internet, DeFed says.
His main concern was that he was considered a homosexual, that there was a transvestite in jail who was making these allegations, and prosecutors had taken those allegations and released them to the public, DeFed says. Art was devastated by this. Art was talking to me about the impact this was having on his adult son whose mother had just passed away, how the ministers in the black churches would not defend him if he was homosexual.
Throughout their 20-minute conversation, DeFed says, he tried to steer the conversation to less volatile subjects in the hopes of lifting Teele's spirits. Again, he's got the saddest voice I've ever heard of with Art, DeFed says.
I tried to move on to a different subject, his upcoming trial on the bribery case, and he had a good attorney. But that line of conversation only prompted Teele to think about how he didn't have any money to pay his attorney fees. I'm dead in the water. I'm dead in the water, DeFed recalls Teele telling him. He went back to talking about the homosexual stuff, and again I tried to change the subject.
At one point, DeFed offered to write a column about Teele's woes.
I said, Art, do you want me to talk about how the prosecutors were releasing the homosexual allegations to destroy you with the black ministers? DeFede recalls. I will do a column on that. And he said, no. I was saying not all your avenues are closed. If you want to fight, fight.
He tried to steer his friend to a neutral topic, asking about a community project in Overtown, a predominantly black neighborhood in Miami, and story ideas for his column.
Where the conversation started in a very emotional way, with him almost crying, we had moved to where Art was on an even keel. I took that as a good sign. As the conversation came to an end, he said, Jim, I thank you for your kindness. He said on the tape, you are one of the only reporters I trust. You are one of the few people I trust.
The call ended with DeFed telling Teele to tell his wife, Stephanie, hello from him. That was at 5:10 p.m. on July 27th. 42 minutes later, Teele called DeFed again, this time from the Herald lobby. He said, I have a package here for you, DeFed recalls.
We were talking about that project in Overtown. He said, I have some things that you should see. I wasn't recording this conversation. I could tell he was not emotional. I even asked him, do you want me to come down and pick it up?
Teele told the columnist it could wait until DeFed showed up at the newspaper the next day.
10 minutes later, I got a call that Art had shot himself in the lobby, DeFed says. I was trembling, he says. My hands started shaking. While I was concerned about Art, I thought it had moved past the crisis stage.
The investigation into Teele's activities painted a picture of a man deeply entrenched in the city's underbelly. Initiated by the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office, the inquiry aimed to unravel the complex web of financial misconduct linked to Teele's tenure at Miami International Airport and other city projects. Charges against him included mail fraud, wire fraud, and laundering money through complex schemes ostensibly meant to benefit the city but often serving personal ends. Surveillance reports compiled by detectives followed Teele's movements with painstaking detail. These reports suggested a double life where public service was overshadowed by private dealings that didn't truly follow the law, a betrayal of the public trust. In his final days, Teele's public appearances became infrequent and his behavior erratic. He seemed to be a man on the edge, aware that the forthcoming expose would likely strip away any remaining veneer of respectability. The article, when it was published, offered a devastating account of Teele's misdeeds, depicting him as a man overtaken by his appetites for power and excess. The The narrative that emerged from the investigation and subsequent reporting was one of a public servant who had lost his way. Teele's actions, as detailed in police reports and court documents, showed a pattern of behavior that prioritized personal gain over public good. The parking lots that were never used, the suspicious expenditures in the entertainment district, and the inflated contracts awarded under his watch were all indicative of a deeper malaise within the city's administration. Teele's tragic end in the Miami Herald lobby, a day before the damning article was published, was a stark and public confession of guilt. It was an act that spoke to the overwhelming pressure he faced and the profound isolation that often accompanies public disgrace. His suicide was not just the loss of a life, but a symbol of the systemic corruption that can infect the highest levels of local government. The story of Arthur Teele serves as a poignant reminder of the perils of power and the importance of integrity in public office. His rise and fall are a cautionary tale for all public servants, underscoring the essential need for accountability and ethical leadership. The legacy of his life and career continues to influence Miami's political landscape, serving as a stark reminder of the fine line between service and self-interest. On April 18, 2007, almost 2 years after he committed suicide, Teele's conviction for corruption by threat against a public servant was overturned by the Florida 3rd District Court of Appeal. The court allowed the appeal by a deceased individual on the basis that Teele's conviction precluded his wife from making a valid claim for death benefits under the City of Miami's pension plan and other merits of his case.